Spring game thoughts. TCU players in the transfer portal and a new commit for the 2024 class. All that and more coming next on Locked On Horned Frogs.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right, it is Locked On Horned Frogs. I'm your host, Steven Simcox. Subscribe on YouTube. Also, you can subscribe wherever it is you get your podcast. We're approaching 600 subscribers on YouTube, so that'd be a cool benchmark to hit over the next few weeks if possible. I'd love to hear your thoughts today in the YouTube comments, or you can hit me up personally on Twitter. I'm at Simcox Steven. And my question is pretty simple. What are your thoughts from the TCU spring game that went down on Friday? What stood out to you? What was something that you're concerned about moving forward? All those things, let me know. The biggest thing that stood out to me, we talked about the strength of these inside receivers and these tight ends, and that was really evident in the spring game. They were throwing the ball over the middle of the field a lot, and really the breakout star was John Paul Richardson. Had a huge day, had a touchdown catch of, I believe, 61 and 22 yards on Friday night. Looked really good, was open time and time again. JoJo Earl was not as involved, but both Richardson and Earl, experienced players coming over playing in the slot. This slot position might be better this season, which is crazy to say because you had Tay Barber, Darius Davis, Gunnar Henderson. Like, you had some dudes, but they might end up being better overall this season. Somebody asked me about Tay Barber the other day. Yeah, he's in the draft process. I haven't really heard a lot about him personally. I think he'll be a free agent at least, but I haven't really heard much about Tay and his pro prospects, but had a really great career at TCU, and that'll be tough to replace. But John Paul Richardson looked good. Jared Wiley and DeAndre Rogers were involved. DeAndre Rogers had a touchdown catch. I thought the quarterbacks were okay. Josh Hoover looked impressive. I don't think there's any quarterback controversy here. I mean, I still feel like clearly Chandler Morris is the guy. But one thing Josh Hoover has done during this camp, I still believe they're going to bring in a quarterback because you need 3 scholarship quarterbacks on your roster. But I feel like he's made everyone more comfortable with the idea that he could function in this offense if he had to. Obviously, it'd be a step down. You probably lose some explosiveness, but you would have somebody who could run the offense effectively and efficiently. But take all this stuff with a grain of salt because he was running against the 2s and 3s on defense. He did look good, though, and I think he has a pretty good command on what Kendall Briles wants to do offensively. Chandler Morris, I thought he looked fine. It wasn't amazing. Missed one throw on a little pop pass to JPR, John Paul Richardson, when they were back up their own goal line. But overall, looked good. One random observation I had about Chandler, and I guess he's probably done this in the past, I just didn't notice it as much, really likes to mess with the arm angles, like drop the arm down, kind of manipulate the way he's throwing. I don't know, just kind of a curious thing. They're moving the pocket from time to time. I expect that to be a staple of the offense this year. So I think, he's going to be ready to go. Fall camp's going to be good for him too. And I have confidence he'll be able to lead the offense when they take on Colorado in a few months. But overall, looked good. Missed some throws here and there, but no glaring deficiencies in my mind. I wasn't overly impressed with the running backs. I mean, I don't mean to say that they were bad. I just didn't come away thinking like, man, this group is on fire or anything. I thought Amani Bailey did okay. Didn't really break one. Trey Sanders, one thing I was impressed with Trey, the Alabama transfer, well, he seems like a really patient runner, and he seems to understand how to wait on his blocks, maneuver through the traffic at the line of scrimmage and get extra yardage. And so I think that's an encouraging sign moving forward. But Cam Cook will be interesting when he gets there, the true freshman from Round Rock Stony Point. But I think overall they'll be set up pretty well at that running back position. Offensive line looked good. One guy that I was totally wrong about, Garrett Hayes, I thought when they moved him over to the defensive line at the start of camp that maybe they were kind of in desperation trying to find a spot for him, but it appears that he is, your starting left guard right now. So good for him. And I mean, I'm glad that he is there in the two deep rotation. With him and John Lands and Patrick or Willis Patrick, I feel pretty good about the interior line. Obviously, you have some newcomers or not newcomers, just some players coming back with Brandon Coleman and Andrew Koger at those tackle positions, and so I think it'll take some time for continuity for him. But I like the prospects of the O line defensively. From a secondary perspective, didn't see Avery Helm, didn't see Josh Newton, so really hard to evaluate the corners. But I think with Shannon Candem, Mason White, they have some depth there. The safeties are experienced. I feel like with another year under their belt, got beat on some plays, but overall should have really good command of this defense. The linebackers I was super impressed with. A lot of athleticism there. I was impressed with Jonathan Bax, the freshman who's had a good camp. I thought Shad Banks made some plays. And I think guys like, Johnny Hodges and Terrence Cooks will be fine. They'll understand what they need to do when the lights come on and the season starts. D-line is the big concern to me. I just didn't see a lot of push on Friday night. Obviously, not going contact. I thought Paul Olawale might have gotten to the quarterback a few times if it was a real game. I like the starting lineup of Caleb Fox and Dominic Williams and Tymon Mitchell. But past that, you don't have much there. And so I think that's going to be the biggest focus for TCU over the next few weeks in the portal is finding some bodies for this D-line because you need to be able to go 2 or 3 deep, and they don't have that depth right now. So if you get beat up front, I mean, we saw it at the end of the Gary Patterson tenure. If you get knocked off the ball and teams can run on you and have all day to throw the ball, then no matter how talented you are at the other levels, it's just really tough to be a solid defensive unit. So got to get that fixed. And I trust the coaching staff knows that better than I do, and we'll work hard to try to do that in the coming weeks and months. So let me know what you thought about the spring game. You can drop some comments on YouTube. You can hit me up on Twitter at LockedOnTCU is the show account, at SimcockSteven is my personal account. When we come back, a number of players for TCU have hit the transfer portal. We'll be moving on to other schools potentially, and so we'll talk about that next. I do want to mention FanDuel, though. NBA and NHL playoffs in full swing right now. If you'd like to get on the action, try to make some money, you can download the FanDuel app, which is safe, secure, and easy to use. You can also go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to take advantage of their no-sweat first bet deal. You can bet on money lines, parlays, prop bets. It's all there. FanDuel, it's where the game starts. Official betting partner of the NBA. And, yeah, it's the best time to start, trying to make some money. MLB in full swing as well. FanDuel, it's where the game starts. They're a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. So the spring portal window is open, and that means that players can enter the portal and find new destinations before fall camp starts. So far, a number of TCU players have hit the portal and will be moving on potentially. Now, guys can always come back, but in most cases, if a player is going on the transfer portal, it means they are going elsewhere. Not a lot of huge names so far. Now, one name that stood out to me is Blair Conright, and Blair's been around for a while. I've talked about him before. He was sort of like a safety blanket for Max in 2019 and 2020. He was someone that he would target on third downs. He's originally from Lubbock. This past season, though, really got lost in the shuffle. 5 catches for 63 yards, no touchdowns. With the emergence of Quentin Johnston, with some guys like Savion Williams and Jordan Hudson on the outside, you just didn't see as much of Blair. I was a little surprised by this because it seemed like he was having a good spring camp, and it feels like there's opportunity at that outside receiver position. Quincy Brown hit the portal earlier this offseason. He was someone that they thought might step into that role. Savion Williams is obviously here. You got some newcomers like Cordell Russell, DJ Allen in year 2, Jordan Hudson in year 2. But I guess he just didn't see a path on the depth chart, and also we talked about how much they were using those inside wide receivers and tight ends during spring ball. So maybe this had something to do with it as well. But best of luck to Blair. My understanding is he has a degree, and so he's done a really good job taking advantage of those opportunities at TCU from an academic standpoint, had some good moments, had some big catches through his career, just wasn't really on the field much last season, and is gonna go elsewhere. So that to me so far. Now this can change. This is very fluid. By the time you listen to this, there might be more guys in the portal, but that to me is the biggest name, just because he's a guy that has shown some promise in the past. A few more guys that kind of fit that bill. One is Noah Daniels, and Noah Daniels has been at TCU for 6 seasons. He's gotten extra eligibility because of injuries, because of COVID. At one time, I remember, I think it was before the 2020 season, Pro Football Focus did an interview with Noah Daniels about how he was projected to be like a day one or day two NFL pick that next year if he had a big time season. He had a really good game against Ohio State a while back. That was that Sean Robinson year. I guess that was 2018. Showed a lot of promise, great athleticism, just dealt with injury after injury, and never really saw the field again. Some other players emerged. Obviously, Josh Newton came in last season. Trey Hodges Tomlinson has been, the kind of standard for corners for the past few years, and now he's going to move on to the NFL, but never really clicked. He was one of those players that I would hear a lot of questions about, but just didn't see much of the field. But him and Keon Stewart both had their moments. And so I think there will be some interest in Noah. I don't know where his health is at, but he stuck it out through a lot of adversity. And so best of luck to him moving on to another place. And sorry that it didn't really come together fully and click for him, but has a lot of potential there. I don't know where he is physically at the moment and how much he can contribute moving forward. Staying in the secondary, Keontae Jenkins also hit the portal. And, that was a big time name when he got recruited and when he ended up coming to TCU. And I believe he was part of that 2020 class. He was like a signing day flip. It wasn't expected that he was going to end up at TCU, but he sort of randomly did. Yeah, Virginia Beach, Virginia was part of that 2020 class that had Garrett Hayes, that had Quentin Johnson, and some others. They just come off a year where they were 5-7, and then that recruiting class really sort of took off. But plays the corner position, a lot of athleticism, and again, just didn't really see the field. He's a smaller player. And so one thing about Joe Gillespie is he seems to like corners that are longer, rangier, and I guess Jenkins didn't fit that bill. But another player that just didn't, find much playing time, and so is looking elsewhere. Someone else that fits that mold is Deshaun McEwen. He's from Jacksonville, Texas, East Texas originally, and he is also going to move on. So a lot of moving parts in the secondary with corners and safeties, but they brought in a few corners out of the portal earlier this offseason. So some of these guys are just looking for better opportunities. Along the line, on the defensive line, Doug Blue Eli, who played in a few games last season. He's a JUCO transfer. He was one of the many defensive linemen that came in last year as they were trying to find some depth along that D-line. He's in the portal. He's a big guy, like 6'4", 320. And he was one of those kind of nose tackle type players, type build that they brought in when they moved to this new defense with 3-3-5. And so he'll look elsewhere. Had plenty of opportunity. There's plenty of opportunities at D-line right now, so I guess he just didn't feel like he was going to see much of the field this season. And then Altric Barlow, another big player, another big guy, one of those interior offensive linemen. He has also hit the portal. He was on there too deep, so this surprised me a little bit because, there was a chance for him to get in there. But I guess with Garrett Hayes and with emerging a little bit in the depth chart and Willis Patrick coming in, maybe he didn't see much opportunity there, but he will also be in the transfer portal. So that's a list that we'll probably update daily over the next week or so. And we'll try to keep you, on tabs of what's going on there. And then obviously if TCU adds some players, we'll cover that as well. When we come back, we'll wrap things up. TCU has a new commitment for the 2024 class. I do want to talk about Built Bar, though, briefly. Built Bar is the best protein bar around. If you've tried it, you love it. They're online at builtbar.com. You can also get them at Sam's Club, at Walmart now. So they have all kinds of great flavors. One of my favorite flavors is the birthday cake. They have the puffs kind, which has got some marshmallows in it. It's real ingredients. It's limited calories, limited sugar, and so you can feel good about eating it, and it tastes good as well. BuiltBar.com to order those today, or find them at your local Sam's Club or at Walmart. Again, that's Built Bar. So TCU has had a slow start to the 2024 recruiting cycle, but finally got on the board with a commitment from Alito quarterback Haas Haney last week. And then over the weekend, Ryan Hughes from the Woodlands, he committed. Great size here from Ryan, 6'6", 295, currently a 3-star offensive tackle, according to 247 Sports. Had a nice offer list: Houston, the service academies, Air Force and Army, Memphis, Nebraska, North Texas, Louisiana, and others all going after Hughes. Again, you hear that size, 6'6", 295. A lot of room to grow there in that frame. And, he's going into a senior year, so he's getting that commitment out of the way. Nice to get an offensive tackle to pair with your QB. And finally some momentum starting to get rolling here with TCU and this 2024 class. Haas Haney actually competed at the Elite 11 regional in Austin. So Elite 11, they showcase the top 11 quarterbacks in the nation, top 11 high school quarterbacks in the nation each season. And so this was one of those qualifying events. And Haas Haney did really well there. He ended up as the number 1 rated quarterback from an athleticism standpoint. There were all kinds of reports about him throwing the ball really well. Ari Wasserman, who covers recruiting for The Athletic, he wrote a good story about Haas and said that he would probably he said one scout commented at the Elite 11 Regional that he would probably be a 5-star if he was 6 feet tall. He's just at 5'11". It's funny how those measurables really make a big difference. But Gabe Brooks at 247 also was super impressed. So Haas going up against some of the best quarterbacks in the state of Texas and throwing the ball well. We talked about him with John Garcia, and we'll try to get John on again this Friday to talk about Ryan Hughes. If you want to go back and watch that, it's on the YouTube channel or on the podcast feed. But a lot of high praise for Haas and who he is and who he can become in the coming years. So that'll do it for Locked On Horned Frogs today. We'll be back tomorrow. It's your team every day.